from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Coming up on AgDay, with so much heartache, it's a harvest full of heart.
When you get there, and it was amazing. You're just a small part of this huge puzzle.
Why these farmers are lending a helping hand. Plus more trade drama with China.
China is dying to make a deal with me.
The White House upping the ante in the trade war as China fires back. And now a major company says it's weighing on their bottom line.
AgDay, presented by the all-new Chevy Silverado, the strongest, most advanced Silverado ever.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Investors, bankers, and farmers are seeing what the start of a new trading week will bring following a volatile ride last week with both the ag and stock markets tumbling. News from the president about increasing tariffs with China next month comes with threats from the Chinese to retaliate.
He indicated in good faith, a very respectful note to President Xi that we hope to continue the talks in September. We hope their team comes here. But in terms of the progress of the deal, the president's not satisfied. Our trade reform policy is designed not only for free, fair, and reciprocal trade, but to help all sectors of the American economy where there has been economic harm done as a consequence of unlawful trading practices.
National reporter Betsy Gibbon joins us with more on this developing story. Betsy.
A busy set of days with trade in a war of words.
China is dying to make a deal with me. But whether or not I'll do it, it's up to me. It's not up to them.
Felt from Capitol Hill all the way to the CME.
Wow, a bit of a heavy day across the board in the grains.
The Federal Reserve cutting interest rates for the first time since 2008, the same week as major trade negotiations.
It is intended to ensure against downside risks from weak global growth and trade policy uncertainty, to help offset the effects these factors are currently having on the economy.
But what started as a week of fresh negotiations with U.S. trade officials and the Chinese ended differently than it began.
Again, how close are we? Are we going to get this done before the 2020 elections?
Don't put timelines on these kinds of conversations.
President Trump announced on Twitter the U.S. will impose a 10% tariff on an additional $300 billion worth of Chinese imports September 1st, not including the $250 billion already tariffed at 25%. CNBC reporting expectations are tariffs will apply to goods that arrive in the U.S. on September 1st, and the president is willing to shelve if China takes positive action. The president frustrated about the lack of breakthroughs in Shanghai when U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer and Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin traveled there to negotiate with their Chinese counterparts.
We have seen the volatility pick up substantially here this afternoon on the back of a tweet from President Trump.
Announcements which collapsed many commodity markets, crude oil falling $5, December hogs slipping the limit down, and the cotton-adjusted world price fell to 56 cents per pound, the lowest in September 2016. All happening last week.
That's just kind of the world that we live in 2019, where not specific news headlines, but also social media platforms can influence price.
The Chinese firing back with the foreign ministry saying necessary countermeasures are to come if the U.S. acts on more tariffs.
China has always maintained that there are no winners in the trade war. We do not want to fight, but we are not afraid to fight either.
While there's concern the U.S. could lose the Chinese market, a former special assistant to the president for agriculture says it's not too much of a thought yet.
Yes, that's absolutely a legitimate concern and could absolutely be a problem. But I think second, I don't really think we're on the precipice of that point yet.
Hope a new week will bring clarity and less volatile markets with it. Reporting for AgDay, I'm Betsy Gibbon.
All right, thanks, Betsy. President Trump also announcing a new agreement between the U.S. and EU, saying it will give beef exports a big boost. During a press conference, the president saying that the new agreement will triple non-tariff beef access for U.S. producers from $150 million to $420 million, a 180% increase. The agreement will be phased in over 7 years, and on Friday, U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer and his European counterpart made the deal official.
Initial estimates indicate that U.S. beef will grow by over $270 million a year once the agreement is fully implemented. With this new exclusive country-specific quota, American ranchers have a guaranteed market share in Europe. We look forward to the European Union approving this agreement expeditiously.
The agreement is now headed to the European Parliament for final approval. Now, as trade tensions intensify in China, agribusinesses say they're feeling the pressure too. The latest proof is in ADM earnings, showing a near 40% drop in profits. Archer Daniels Midland Company saying it's not just China, but a historically wet spring. The company posting second quarter earnings showing adjusted profits down 41%. The company pointing to a multitude of factors, including China, weighing on the bottom line. Everything from African swine fever to trade issues and the spring weather, all taking a bite out of the company earnings. Company leaders say they are taking aggressive measures to deliver better results in the second half of the year. As financial pain hangs over agriculture, more farmers may soon be eligible to file for Chapter 12 bankruptcy, a bill to raise the cap now heading to the president's desk. As we first reported Friday, farm bankruptcies are on the rise this year. Fresh data showing Chapter 12 bankruptcies are up 13% over the past 12 months. And as you can see from the map from the American Farm Bureau, much of that increase due to a large jump in the Northwest. A bill headed to the president's desk would allow for more farmers to be eligible for Chapter 12 bankruptcy filings, raising the cap up to $10 million. That would more than double that upper limit. The measure moving forward after both the House and Senate approved the bill.
Well, it's important to give farmers an escape hatch if they have to downsize in order to make it work. Otherwise, the taxes will be an impediment that will stick with them a long time if they file it.
Critics of the bill say raising the cap just gives over-leveraged farmers an easy way out. Cindy Clausen joins us this morning for a look at crop comments. Cindy.
Well, Clinton, Brad Smith sending us this picture from Marion County, Alabama. He says the cotton is in mid-bloom. Even though it's hard to see, he says the crop looks good. It's just in need of a rain. USDA says out of the national cotton crop, 54% is rated good to excellent, a dip from the previous year. The department will release updated numbers today. Coming up, we'll take a look at your national forecast, but for now, here are some hometown temps.
Introducing Farm Journal TV, on demand 24/7. AgDay, Machinery Pete TV. U.S. Farm Report on your phone and tablet. Download the Farm Journal TV mobile app today.
Coming up is history repeating itself, a history lesson about embargoes and tariffs from Mark Gold, and helping hands turn into heroes. In Washington, we'll tell you about the Harvest Full of Heart later as we head in the country.
Closed captioning is brought to you by BASF. Grow smart with BASF. We create chemistry.
After a busy week, let's see how markets closed on Friday. For that, we head over to the CME in Chicago.
Today in the livestock market, we had everything pushed all to the downside. The cattle was easier. There just hasn't been much cash trade right now. There's been a weaker tone following that tariff war news, and plus that pop in the grain market today really added a little more pressure. We don't know like how long that's going to keep that market down. But if it's any indication, the feeders are what's telling the tale. They had a sharp drop today. The selling pressure is definitely gaining a lot more momentum. We were down almost 400 today. There seems to be the idea that there's been no response to that drop in the grain market yesterday has a lot of traders worried that the meats are not really responding to the grains. The idea that there's going to be cheaper feed prices. There just hasn't been the beef demand that we had been hoping for. It's got a lot of the traders a little bit nervous, and certainly as they're watching the hog complex right now, the hogs were lower. They did start to bounce back early today, but now they've been sent lower again. The deferred months are down, limit down. We did not have expanded limits today, but they were limit down again. That has a lot of the traders really worried. We were down 15% in just 1 week. We haven't seen that in quite a while.
Mark Gold, Top Third Ag Marketing, joining us for analysis today here in the Kansas City studios. And Mark, talk about this whole trade issue and kind of the wrench it's thrown into a typical year's balance sheets. And do you think we're any closer to getting any of this sorted out?
I really don't. There doesn't seem to be any incentive for the Chinese to do anything. Before the election, they seem to want to wait it out, hoping that there's a Democrat that might give them a better deal. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. But the fact of the matter is we've tried these tariffs, we've tried embargoes, all other kinds of things to try to either punish people or to change the dynamics of a political situation. And what we've always seen is that when Carter put the embargo in on the Russians, all we did was turn our biggest customer into one of our biggest competitors. And I believe we're seeing the same thing now. China's going to plant more beans. They're going to go other places. There was a Chinese delegation in Argentina these past few days looking to buy Argentinian meal, which they've never bought before. So we're forcing the Chinese to look at other markets, grow their own soybeans, and ultimately that hurts us here. And I just, I understand what the president's trying to do and why he's trying to do it. I've just been a fan of free trade, and granted we don't have free trade with the Chinese, but the fact of the matter is it seems to me that a lot of this is on the back of the American farmer. We see it in the rising rates of farm bankruptcies. We see it in just depressed farm prices and guys having a tough time making a living out here, and there's nothing being done.
Yeah.
And I don't see it getting done before the next election.
Do you think we've gone a ship too far? Can we pull this back if they were to say, you know what, we're going to pull this back, or is this dynamic forever changed?
Well, I think once you open up that can of worms, it's open. And are the Chinese going to view us as a stable trading partner? Probably not in agricultural terms. If we're going to keep using agriculture as a weapon to try to get them in line, no, I don't see things changing. Now, if we were to drop the tariffs, the Chinese claim they're going to be buying more grain. We haven't seen any evidence of that, really. A couple of little sales maybe this past week. But the fact of the matter is they're not complying. It's a mess, and it's the American farmer that's really getting hurt from all this.
All right. Appreciate the perspective as always, Mark. Thanks so much. We'll be back with more Ag Day in just a minute.
For a special report on the grain markets, call toll-free at 877-TT-HEDGE. That's 877-884-3343.
The 2019 Pro Farmer Midwest Crop Tour is coming soon. Kicking off August 19th, watch for extensive coverage on air and online. The premier sponsor of Crop Tour is Pioneer, with support from IBM, RCIS, Ram, AeroVironment, Titan Tires, and Farm Credit Services of America.
Meteorologist Cindy Clausen joining us. Cindy, looking at the drought monitor here, I've talked to some folks over at Drovers that said, cattle out on pasture in eastern Kansas seeing big gains this year because they've had great grass.
Exactly, and we've really seen just almost like a turnaround. Yeah. Areas that have been usually dry are seeing wetter conditions this year, and boy, was it a really, really wet spring for a lot of the Corn Belt. But take a look at the drought monitor and see what's happening now. We continue to see abnormally dry conditions showing up in much of the Corn Belt, and while it's not really getting into drought just yet, it's obviously something that we're going to be really watching over the next few weeks as we're shifting into a bit of a drier pattern in some of these areas. And it doesn't take much, even though these areas are going to be over for the year. It's the fact that we've had these dry stretches that we're seeing the ground really starting to dry out. Let's take a look and see over the past week, most of that rainfall has been not only in the southeast and Florida, over in New Orleans, but we've also had, as Clinton was mentioning, parts of the Plain states have seen more rain than usual, especially to the west of Kansas City, over towards Wichita, northwestern Missouri, into southwestern Iowa, and even on up into the Dakotas. We've seen a little bit more rain than usual. What can we expect this week? Well, we do expect to see more of a trough developing in the Great Lakes and in the eastern part of the country, while the ridge holds in the west. And that trough deepens as we get into the end of the week and where the ridge holds. But notice we have kind of a quick trough in the Pacific Northwest there, the ridge holding into the east, finally starting to move off next week. And then things kind of flatten out in the northwest with that heat remaining, especially in the southern part of the country. Let's look at the week ahead. Below normal overall for parts of the Great Lakes and into the upper Midwest, but a bit on the warm side along the east coast and in a good chunk of the southwestern United States. Precipitation this week a little above normal in parts of the Corn Belt, so that's not a bad thing there. Above normal in Florida, a little dry though in the western half of the Gulf Coast states, encompassing much of Texas and in parts of the west as well. 30 days cooler than normal temperatures over most of the Corn Belt, a little warm in the northeast, in parts of the southern plains, and also in the northwest. Precipitation-wise, we're looking at to be a little dry in the eastern parts of the Great Lakes, parts of the southern plains and the west, but perhaps a bit on the wet side in the central plains over towards the Four Corners region and in the southeastern United States. That's a look at your national forecast. Now let's check on the weather where you live. Ballard, Utah, a slight chance for showers and thunderstorms today with a high of 90 degrees. Camdenton, Missouri, mostly sunny, a high of 89. And Patton, Pennsylvania, mostly sunny, a high of 79 degrees.
Up next, Machinery Pete stops by.
Stay tuned, folks. Coming up, I'm going to tell you about a tractor, a skid steer, and a combine sold at auction last week.
And later, farmers helping farmers in a time of need. It's a heartfelt harvest in the country.
Ag Day, brought to you by the Enlist Weed Control System. More weed control, less drift and volatility, maximum yield potential.
It's no surprise used equipment in good condition has strong buyer demand and sells well, but lately Pete is seeing record auction prices for certain equipment, and he's sharing it with us today.
Well, more so than any time the 30 years I've been tracking used farm equipment values, folks, the current market is all about condition. So if an item is in good shape, whether it's older, bigger, smaller, if it's in good shape, the buyer demand is there, and the dollars are really strong if it's got a little bit of age on it. Now conversely, if the item is just kind of okay condition, those used values are sliding lower. Now here's a few examples on the good condition side from the past week. So a week ago Friday, farm auction up in central Minnesota, this really sharp 1992 John Deere 4560 tractor, 2,391 hours on it, sold for $60,000. And that's the highest auction price in over 4 years on a John Deere 4560. Now the next day, a week ago Saturday, consignment auction way up in northwest Pennsylvania. This really sharp New Holland LS 150 skid steer, a little bit older, 4,200 hours, like new tires, sold for $11,000. How high is that? Well, that's the highest auction price on an LS 150 in over 9 years. And on that same day, a week ago Saturday, down in northeast Missouri on a consignment auction, huge sale, they had 4 2018 model combines, including this Case IH 8240 with front tracks and 433 engine hours. And it sold for $300,000. Pretty impressive on a hard cash wholesale auction. And that's the 6th combine in the past year in the U.S. I've seen sold for $300K or more.
Harvest always requires all hands on deck. Next, lots of helping hands showing up at a Washington farm to bring in the harvest.
Your next piece of equipment is on MachineryPete.com. Search equipment from dealerships across the country to find what you're looking for. Only on MachineryPete.com. Closed captioning is brought to you by BASF. Grow smart with BASF. We create chemistry.
We have a story with heart amid so much uncertainty and heartache this season. Helping hands turning out to be heroes last week, including at a harvest with a special purpose. Washington farmer Larry Yockey is battling stage 4 cancer, which is now in his bones. This was the first year in 50 he won't be able to harvest his crop, given that struggling health. After sharing those concerns, neighbors sprang into action, ready with machines to work his fields, bringing in Yockey's wheat, which accounts for nearly 100% of his income. Local farmer Jake Klein helped harvest Yockey's crop, and he said a local mechanic orchestrated the whole thing.
Just the logistics of planning one of these from all aspects, you know, just to be a part of that day, it all went so smoothly. You know, they had enough equipment and people and fire departments, and the local bakery bought out donuts, and everybody was involved. It was just a really, really neat experience.
Klein says all of this happened a week ago Sunday, their usual day of rest, but even the local elevator stayed open to take in the load. Klein calling it a life-changing experience everyone will always remember.
When you get there, and it was amazing. You're just a small part of this huge puzzle that they have put together, and seeing, you know, he had 3 different fields that they had the combines divided up in perfectly, and, you know, again, the crews and people, and just you're a small part of a big picture. And to see Larry, and his family, his wife, they're there at the beginning, and just super grateful and emotional and appreciative, and not knowing how they were going to be able to do this otherwise.
Klein says the harvest story is even better, with that area seeing exceptional yields. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. It's been part of your day with us. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day out in Farm Country.